Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld Podcast. We are your source for the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion each and every week. And on this week's show, we're going to be talking about the newest episode of Star Wars The Bad Batch, The Return. Plus, Andor and Kenobi are coming to home media, and we're going to be talking some Star Tours. And finally, last but not least, we'll be responding to your comments and questions in another segment of Ask the SWU. All this and much more on this episode of the Star Wars Underworld Podcast. My name is Chris, and joining me is my good friend, Mr. Dominic Jones.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I was just getting caught up.
Are we interrupting something?
Well, look, Ben, I was just getting caught up on some reading. I was reading Star Wars Bloodline by Claudia Gray. Great book, great author. Yeah, this author, I think she probably has some really interesting things to say, and I would love to hear her say some of those interesting things. And yeah, actually, does anybody happen to know where she will be next Friday at, like, let's say 11 o'clock in the morning? Oh, actually, I do. I know. She'll be on Intro to Star Wars Publishing, the panel I'll be moderating at Toronto Comic Con, Friday, March 15th, 11 a.m., Theater 3, aka Room 202 AB, featuring Claudia Gray alongside another panel of great Star Wars publishing experts. We'll be discussing, well, where to get started in Star Wars books and all sorts of other fun Star Wars reading topics. And then, of course, if you're going to be at Toronto Comic Con, you might as well also come on Sunday to Celebrating Star Wars, 3:15 p.m., Theater 4, aka Room 202 CD. Another great panel discussing all things Star Wars. Literally, the first and last panels of the convention are going to be moderated by yours truly. So come on out.
Bookend. Know how to read, Dom.
Yeah, bookend the entire convention with some Star Wars Underworld adjacent panels at Toronto Comic Con. But yeah, very excited to talk about this episode of The Bad Batch. It's going to be a great show.
Fantastic. Yeah, make sure you check that out. It's not too late to get your flight to Toronto. There's probably still some available.
Yes.
Yeah. Business class. They always keep some seats left for the last minute travelers. Also joining us, it's Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yes, I am so grateful for the return of The Bad Batch this week to discuss another great episode.
You're not getting us again with these title puns. You're not getting us again. No.
I'm gonna keep trying. I'm gonna keep trying.
No. You got us once.
I'm gonna keep trying.
You got us once.
You can't discourage me. You can't discourage me. This is
Ben,
my passion.
Ben, the well is dry. The well is dry. There is no more.
Oh my goodness.
Just watch me. Watch me.
Thank you for returning to our podcast to give us that.
It doesn't work for you either. It doesn't work for you either. Either of you. If Hannah were here and she wanted to try, it doesn't work for her.
Oh yeah, like 8 straight weeks of puns from this guy, and he's critiquing everybody else.
That's why she hasn't returned this week.
No, still no.
Oh my goodness. Also joining us, he is from Star Wars Spelt Out. It's a good friend, Mr. Josh Chapman.
Hey guys, out with one Australian, in with another one. This is the rotating policy here. We can't have the no homers club. We can't have more than we can have only one. We can have one Australian on the show. But thanks for having me. It's good to see you guys all again. We're just chatting beforehand, reminiscing about Celebration London and all the good times we had, and getting ready for Celebration Japan in probably 12 months, a little bit more.
Just about, yeah. Yeah, we were chatting before the show got started. Josh and I were reminiscing about the accidental cult meeting we held on the first night, or I guess the night before Celebration London, at a pub not anywhere near the convention center. A whole bunch
of us do it, man. That's where the real ones go. They don't hang out the hotel bar, they hit the real streets.
Exactly. And we all, Josh had made these, or had these terrific toques made, or beanies if you're American, that were all green. They said Star Wars spelt out on it, and we were all wearing them at this pub, and it was full of locals looking at us going, what the bloody hell is going on here, mate? What kind of cult are you guys involved in? I think I suddenly became Australian there at the end there.
It was a little bit rushy. Well, it was my local pub. So I lived in London for 10 years, not far from that pub. So when the opportunity came to get people to come down for a drink before celebration started, I said, well, let's just go down to my local pub. It's Thursday night. It should be reasonably quiet. Totally forgot the holiday the next day. So everybody was out. So they got the real London pub experience. Of
that we did. That we
outside
did.
Area trying to get a drink.
Wearing a green hat that says Star Wars on it.
Yeah, that's the beanie. So I've done the custom beanies the last 3 celebrations. So given to sort of friends of the show, people who've been on, people we know who asked for them. So hopefully Japan, it'll happen again. So if you guys are there, I'll put some aside. That's like one suitcase of clothes, one suitcase of beanies. You get rid of the beanies and you bring back all the crap that you bought at Celebration in the empty suitcase.
Yeah. Well,
it's always really easy at Celebration to spot the Spelt Out's crew. Just like, oh, there's one. I see it way over there. I see Catherine way over there. Yeah.
Except in Anaheim, where it was like 35 degrees, centigrade or whatever. I'm going by Celsius.
I was like, wait a minute, that was Chicago.
Yeah. Well, Chicago was great. It was freezing. London and Chicago was good. I don't know about Japan. We'll see how the weather goes. Hopefully it'll be beanie weather.
Yeah. Well, I also remember you gave me mine. I go to swap out my Blue Jays cap for my toque, again, Canadian. And I take off the Blue Jays hat. You look at me and go, bald.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I know. I hide it well. Josh, before we dive into the episode too much, let's get your thoughts overall on the Bad Batch and the Bad Batch season 3.
Oh, look, I think the Bad Batch is outstanding. And it's probably better than we ever gave it credit, certainly going in. Mm-hmm. Certainly when it was soft piloted in that Clone Wars reboot, people were like, well, do I really care about these people? Who cares? But it's been the perfect vehicle to tell this story of the phasing out of the clones, the Empire taking grip, the real pivotal change in the galaxy through the eyes of the people sort of closest to it. And I think it was, we'll get into this season, but I think last season was the best Star Wars content that came out last year. I think it was better than the live action stuff. And I don't want to poo-poo the live action stuff. I liked a fair bit of it, some more than others, but it just nailed the relationships. It took its time to tell the story. It was all well thought out. And I think this is just picking up the ball and running with it. I'm really want to know what's going to happen to these poor clones because it's just sort of the writing's on the wall a little bit. You're kind of sleepwalking into it's almost like watching episode 3, knowing what's going to happen, that you're kind of going, this doesn't end well. And even the stuff with the Project Necromancer stuff, which I know is sort of glorious backpedaling, but we know that it works. We know it worked. Project Necromancer was
there's no
success.
Stopping it.
Mm-hmm. Palpatine dies, 3 years from pretty much where this story takes place. So within the 3 years of this story, it's a successful thing. So what does that mean to our characters and Omega and everything like that? So I think it's doing great work. I'm really excited that it's back and it's scratching that Star Wars itch. We had to wait around a bit for some stuff, so it's good to have stuff.
Yeah,
and it's on 7 p.m. in Australia. It drops as well in the evening, so it's absolutely great for us.
3 a.m. 3 a.m.
Just go to bed and watch it in the morning.
That's what I've been doing. I've been trying to
get up at 6 and watch it if you have to.
Go to bed at a decent time.
Taylor Swift negotiated a 6 p.m. Pacific release for her movie on Disney Plus. what are you doing, Kathleen Kennedy? Taylor Swift.
We just need to
Taylor
get
Swift in
Taylor
Melbourne.
to watch Bad Batch and negotiate on our behalf.
We had Taylor in Melbourne about 2 weeks ago, where she played at our cricket ground, which holds 100,000 people. She played and it was just Taylor mania. Not to turn to Taylor Cast, but yeah, I think she can do what she likes. If she wants to see the rest of the Bad Batch tomorrow, I think they'll just give it to her. She's probably seen it. That was part of the deal. She's like, I want to see Bad Batch. I want to see Skeleton Crew. I want season 2 of Andor. I don't care. Give it to me now. You want this on your platform? You give Taylor all the Star Wars now, please.
There you go. There you go. All right, Chris, let's plug some things and then we'll break down the return.
If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you're watching on Twitter/X, which I noticed that there was a huge Twitter audience that just came in.
Amazing.
I don't know if you can comment on that platform.
You can. It'll reply and it'll show up.
Okay, because I never see them in our chat. So leave a comment if you're watching on Twitter/X. Because I see comments from Facebook, I see comments from Twitch, YouTube, everywhere, but over there. But I know there's a lot of you watching, so I'd love to hear where you're watching the show from. Comment with where you're from. But we are on YouTube, which is where you can support us financially by sending us a super chat or becoming a channel member. And for anybody who is listening to this show, please subscribe on the podcast app that you're using to listen to us and leave a review if you can. We've got an awesome Discord. Ben does a lot of hard work over there. Community member Joel, he does a fantastic amount of work over there as well. So make sure you check that out. We have the link to that Discord in the description of the show. So make sure that you check us out. And I guess this is a perfect time to say follow us on Threads.
Majority of the audience is from Twitter. Get on over to Threads.
What about Blue Sky? You got a Blue Sky yet, guys?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We
I got about 20 invites if you want some.
we never talk about it because we're all about Threads here. Threads and Pinterest is our mains.
Next month we'll start pushing the Blue Sky a little bit once we hit to our goal on Threads.
We have a goal on Threads.
Yes, it is 300,000 people.
Okay,
I better check if I follow.
We're gonna make that the largest of our accounts. That is the goal.
Oh, naturally.
Yes.
And again, just while we're plugging things, again, Intro to Star Wars Publishing, Friday, March 15th, the very first panel of Toronto Comic Con, Theater 3, featuring Claudia Gray, and then Sunday, March 17th, 3:15 p.m., Theater 4, the last panel of Toronto Comic Con, celebrating Star Wars. Come on out to both.
Check us out.
All right, let's get into things. We are, of course, talking about the 5th episode of season 3 of The Bad Batch, The Return. Let's go around the table, give some initial impressions on the episode. Ben, as always, we're going to throw it to you first. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, so I continue to be satisfied by these episodes. I think this is another satisfying chapter in these characters' lives and gave us a lot of really good character moments. Yeah, it was a little bit of a slower episode. We got some action, but ultimately it was about integrating, those characters back in. I was a teensy bit disappointed we didn't go back to that exact moment. I wanted to see the fallout of Wrecker and Hunter, their first interactions. That time skip kind of threw me, but I quickly got back into the episode when I realized, what they're doing. It was both understated how Crosshair was being brought back and how he was being reintegrated into the team. It wasn't like this, you can't be a part of this, you get out. It wasn't. I think it could have been really made Hunter to be, a real jerk. And be just you can't be a part of this thing or whatever else. They're trying to make it work. They've been on Pabu for a few days or weeks or however long. And I like that they kind of just get thrown back into it and they have to work it out. And they're moving forward towards this goal is to get back to Tantus, which is really interesting. And yeah, Crosshair has some great moments. He's already cracking jokes and laughing. God, I love Crosshair. He's so good. It's just really, it was a nice, fun, some good emotional beats, some good character moments, really all around. I think a wonderful episode.
Nice. Josh, what about you? What'd you think of this one?
I thought it was good. I think it was a solid stepping stone to bigger things. We'd had a couple of big things that have happened, and I think we've got a few big things that are going to happen. So it was really a transitional episode to sort of get us to the next place, to get the pieces in place, get the characters there. Like you said, sort of integrate Crosshair back into the team. It was a lot of the first few minutes. I just became very aware of Hunter sort of standing in the background, like looking around door frames and things, almost like he's just sort of like looking. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. About 3 or 4 times, he was just sort of like weirdly standing around the background. And there was a few little bit kind of like, I don't know how familiar you guys are with the movie Zoolander, a bit like, why are you being weird with me, bro? Why are you being weird? Why are you messing with me? Why are you being weird with me, bro? You're the one being weird. It felt like there was a bit of that going on, and a bit of do you guys know the movie Basketball? Have you seen that movie, the movie Basketball, with the guys from South Park? It's a very funny 90s movie, a chance to see it. But there's a bit where they have an argument, but all they say to each other is dude. They're like, dude, 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 dude. And I think that really felt like Crosshair and Hunter there. They were kind of having this sort of weird sort of bro off, just not very good at communicating. I'll see if I can find the clip and I'll send it to you later on. But I thought the Omega stuff was great. Her waking up, feeling the sun on her face, not being in her cell, kind of waking up and realizing like, oh, I'm not, I'm free. I'm back in my bed. Right. I got my dolly. That was really nice. And just sort of that Wrecker's kind of like the third wheel, that he's not really getting involved in the beef. He's just like, look, you guys sort this out amongst yourselves. And you're getting echo in, but it was good. Yeah, so it was like a little task that they had to do in order to get them to trust each other and stuff. And I thought that was cool. And I don't know why you need to like boot up an entire like station just to get an iPad to work, but whatever. Like we've got to roll with these things. Like the lights are already on. Like I've charged my iPad before, and I just usually need like a little battery or something. But good. Like it's moving in the right direction. It's getting everybody together. I think there'll be more. I think the tension will be there for a while, but I don't think we're going to get an about face of Crosshair now. Like I think he's going to integrate more. I don't think he's going to turn again. I think it would just be pointless to get him go, I've sold you out again. So yeah, solid stuff.
Yeah, good, strong episode to bridge us from sort of that first arc to wherever we're going next. Chris, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think that's a great word. It's very much a bridge episode, or as Josh said, like a transitional episode. And it's tough because it's like the last few episodes have been absolutely stunning and amazing. And so it's really tough because we're coming off of all of that action and drama and reveals to just, a kind of simpler plot line where really this episode just had a very small plot thing to accomplish. They need to get a little bit of information, and they didn't even really get that much information, to be honest. They didn't even find out where Tantus was. And then the other little thing is they needed to, flesh out the relationships a little bit more with the Bad Batch now that Crosshair is back, and they needed some time to do that. So while, those few things were very necessary, the way that the episode was constructed itself, the story of the episode was pretty kind of basic and kind of felt a lot, kind of almost like something out of Bad Batch season 1 to me. It really felt like a story that would have been told in season 1. Like, okay, we got to go.
It's a little mission kind of.
Yeah, we got to go on a mission. We got to raid this base. There's going to be a monster we have to defeat. Like, it's a very basic plot storytelling to just provide a vehicle and for us to get more information about what's going on with Crosshair and Hunter, basically. As a result of that, like, I would say the episode was disappointing for me. Like, I wanted to see this season, like, knock it out of the park with every single episode and, like, blow us away with every single episode, because they were doing really well at first. But if anything, I think maybe this is the first episode we've had that is a victim of having the spotlight of being the only thing that week, because perhaps we might have felt that way about that second episode and the premiere of those 3 episodes, but because it was sandwiched between 2 pretty heavy episodes, especially the last one, I think we kind of might have overlooked the fact that there wasn't as much to that as there was to the especially the last episode. So having this be by itself puts maybe a little bit of undue spotlight, I think, for people binge watching the season later. It's not going to stand out as much. They're just going to move on to the next one and they're not going to stop and think, not as much happened this week as the week before.
How many episodes are there? 21? 20?
15.
Oh, it's only 15. Okay.
Yeah, 15.
So it's a little bit of like, got to make them count. It's not quite as...
It's an interesting take on the episode, Chris, because I'll be honest, I have like the exact opposite feeling. I thought this episode was huge. Like this episode, like the Hunter Crosshair back and forth dynamic, like that carried the episode to the point where the opposite of a dune worm in the ice is like, you're like, yeah, get on with it. Who cares about this? Get back to the characters. That's what we want to see.
Yeah.
And it gives you those moments. And like for years on this show, I've gone on about how I tend to think when they do creature episodes on Star Wars animation in particular, but The Mandalorian has this problem too, where the entire episode is, hey, there's a creature, let's go kill it. Those episodes tend to be really weak in my mind because
they're still low stakes. They're always low stakes.
Yeah. And they don't
this was
do
still
any...
a low stakes episode. Like it really was, we got to get some information. We didn't get that much. It was really the framing thing to get the personal stuff out of the way.
Exactly. And so this is why I'm saying this episode was a creature episode done right. It was there to, add a little bit of urgency to the conversation, add some necessity of why they make us again remember why they have to work together. But really, this episode could have been them, standing around on Pabu just arguing back and forth.
Yeah,
like that.
Like a couple of brothers, they just start wrestling on the floor. That's how they work out their differences.
Exactly. And if this were a show like Andor or something, maybe that's what this episode would have been. It would have just been two guys in a room.
Best written argument between brothers ever.
I mean, see, here's the thing is like, I would have preferred that because then you have even more time to spend on the characters, which is the redeeming good thing about this episode.
But then there's also the other thing that's about that this episode does really, really well is that it is set in the same location as one of the best episodes of all time, which allows us to go back to that episode, that episode is so, and I don't mean that from like a nostalgic purpose, but that episode is in season 2 is so essential to Crosshair's story that bringing him back to that location, it gives there's this really great moment in the episode where there's been the back and forth. There's been the tension between Hunter and Crosshair for the entire way so far. And Crosshair kind of finally walks away from it. And he goes over and he finds all the clone helmets that are there. And he finds the one from his buddy who died at the end of that episode. And he starts sort of putting them up and lining them up, out of respect. They're not piled on the ground anymore. They're kind of given as much of a place of honor as they can be in that abandoned outpost. And Hunter sees this, and it's like all of a sudden Hunter can begin to see, oh, there's more here. And we as the audience, there's probably even though we've seen Crosshair help Omega escape, there's still a little part of us that's wondering, can we fully trust this guy? Can we fully trust this guy? And that moment brings us back to such a pivotal moment in Crosshair's life. And we're like, oh, everything he's done from that moment onward has been informed by this. And he's honoring these clones that he felt were betrayed by the Empire. And you know what? There's another set of clones that were betrayed by the Empire that are right over there that he can probably get back. He couldn't save these guys. Maybe he can save those other guys.
We're showing where his loyalty lies now.
Exactly.
Because his loyalty was to the Empire, was to the Republic, it was to the military. And then when it was a split off, he basically chose his obligations as a soldier over his family. And now he's realized that his allegiance or his loyalty is actually to his brothers, to his type, to his kin, and not necessarily to the Empire. So it's showing that basically that's where he's still loyalty is still a big deal to him. But now he's realized that that's where his loyalty lies, to his kin, as opposed to the machine.
Loyalty is like it seems to be what's driving Crosshair now.
But he didn't see the difference before. Like he saw when it first all sort of kicked off, he was loyal. He considered himself loyal to the clones because most of the clones were still in the Empire. So now the more he's been there, they've been sort of phased out. They've been ostracized. They've been pushed aside more and more and more. So there's a separation between the military and the clones now. That now he's gone, well, the military is it's not my thing. It's the other thing. Yeah.
And even if we go sort of all the way back to season 1, to the finale of season 1, Crosshair says to Hunter, like, you guys didn't come back for me at any point. It's sort of like he says, like, I was always chasing you through season 1. You guys decided that I was irredeemable within the runtime of that mega-sized first episode of the series. Within that time, they never went back for him. So why should he feel any loyalty towards them? The Empire, which to him at that point is still the Republic, basically. That's what he's always known. That's what he's always been loyal to. Good soldiers follow orders. I'm going to stick with what I know. And he does that. And over the course of season 1 and especially season 2, he begins to question that. He begins to wonder, is the Empire actually loyal to me? And it's in that episode, again, set on the same location in season 2, which I wish I could remember what that episode was called, where he realizes, they're not loyal to me. They really aren't. And so I shouldn't be loyal to them. Somebody has to earn Crosshair's loyalty. And the Empire lost it. And now
that's what Omega did. And Omega.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Over the course of those first 3 episodes, or the first and third episode, we see her going back to him constantly and getting through to him, even though he doesn't want to let her get through to him. Eventually she does. And so he's loyal to her at this moment in time, and she's loyal to him. The question is, will he ever truly regain the loyalty of the Bad Batch? Will they regain his loyalty? And over the course of this episode, I don't think we're all the way there in terms of people trusting each other and being loyal to each other, but a strong foundation was built, I think.
Yep. Two things about this. One, the episode title you were looking for is The Outpost. That was the episode of that. Thanks. Number 2, that episode aired a year ago tomorrow.
Oh, damn.
Wow.
I like that.
Don't miss a beat.
Yeah, they really don't. They really don't. Ben, you haven't weighed in yet. What do you think about the Crosshair sort of loyalty question?
Yeah, no, I like how they're doing this. I like how I think it's ultimate. I think it's a little bit with Crosshair. It's a little bit along the lines of like, it's not the Empire's okay as long as they're not like, they're not screwing me over. That's the whole thing. That's a lot of characters are like that. It was just like, as long as they stay away from me, everyone else can just go to hell basically. And as long as my little section of thing, I was just like, like I think similarly, like Lando kind of makes a choice of just like, I'm trying to protect myself, whatever else. Crosshair, I think, is just like, he doesn't really see it. I think through season 2, I mean, in season 1, it's definitely just like, well, the Batch betrayed me, and the Empire is the Empire. Like this is the system for which I exist in, and I am serving, and I swore my loyalty to. So I'm just going to continue to do that. I haven't changed things. The Batch, the Hunter, Wrecker, and Tech, and all those guys, they're the ones that changed their behavior and started doing something different. I stayed the same. And then to season 2, it's just like, okay, this is not quite working out the way I wanted to, the way I thought it would. And that loyalty is not his loyalty to the Empire is not repaid. It is not respected. And it's not any ounce of it is appreciated by the Empire. And you get those great moments of just like, and I like that he responds to that here. He's like, yeah, I shot an Imperial officer, but they betrayed me first. Like he counts it as the Empire finally betraying him. And that's what really did it. And I think that's interesting to hear him talk about that, because ultimately you don't get that a whole lot. I think a lot of the stuff is internalized. I think we see characters go through really bad stuff. We don't always get to hear them like talk about it to other people. I like that this episode gave us a chance to have Crosshair kind of say his piece. And ultimately, and getting back to like the plot of this episode, I'm just like, yes, it's pretty cut and dry. It feels like a season 1 episode in a way. And like the plot of it, the story of it is they got to go do this thing, and they got to plug on the iPad, and then they got to get the coordinates for the thing, and then do the thing, and they get it. And they got to avoid the giant ice snake or whatever they're calling it. And it feels like a pretty, dare I say it, mundane thing, but it is transposed with nothing is the same. Oh, even Crosshair's back. The Bad Batch is back to normal. No, nothing is normal. Everyone has feelings. Everyone is on edge. I love Crosshair and Omega having moments of Omega's kind of like, dude, can you please just not do that? Can you not argue with him? Like, Omega's being very honest. I love they've developed this rapport, and then Hunter is not having it. Wrecker just doesn't care. He's just like, well, Omega trusts him, so like he doesn't care. And Echo is just trying to be peacemaker. And just like whatever, like hope they don't kill each other. And yeah, it's great to see that all kind of like this very normal fetch quest is turned into something that's much, much more just through dialogue.
And like these are characters. They don't, Crosshair and Hunter, neither of them are very good with their emotions. Neither of them are very good with saying what they want to say. And that's why, again, I sort of come back to the creature part of this, where I think it works in this episode, because they get to the point where basically the only thing left for them to do is fight each other. So then they have to fight something else. That to be brought to, and then as they're brought together in their mutual defense of themselves and of their friends, that's when they sort of begin to realize, okay, it gives them some space from that conversation, gives them some chance to think over what was said in it, because they both really challenge each other. Hunter literally challenges Crosshair to a fight. He shoves him in the shoulders. He's ready to throw down, and then Crosshair, ultimate sharpshooter, goes for the jugular with Hunter from an emotional standpoint, saying, you're mad that you let Omega get captured, and then I helped to rescue her when you couldn't. Like, you failed to be her protector, therefore you're mad. Now you're mad that you couldn't be that. It's that somebody else took that role. Yeah,
there's a lot of ego involved, and Hunter and Crosshair particularly high. I mean, Crosshair has had to really learn some humility. Like, I think that part of the reason he was happy to stay with the military was because he thought he was hot stuff. He had special skills that they needed, and his skills have diminished. And he's got to learn a bit of humility. He's got to lean on other people now. He can't sort of rely on that. And Hunter, there's a lot of ego involved as well. Like you said, like he was the guy who kind of led them, kept things going, and he dropped the ball, got Omega captured and things. So they're sort of dealing with their own self-doubt as well. They're not quite as competent as they thought that they were. They could solve everything just with their abilities and stuff as well, which I think also contributed to Crosshair at the Empire. He thought that they would just welcome him because of his abilities, and he kind of just got shunned to the side, got given worse and worse jobs. And it didn't really matter that he was particularly skilled or not, because they just got more grunt. They just went for sort of grunt, massive stormtroopers who can't shoot straight, as opposed to someone with particular skills. Was considered to be not really necessary.
Yeah, they're they spent the entirety of seasons 1 and 2 trying to phase out the clones, and that's sort of
competent troopers are actually a problem, especially if they're not obedient. So it's better to have sort of dumbasses who listen to
you. Yeah, and it's pretty rare to see there actually be the clones fighting clones at this point. Let's start. I do want to sort of look at Hunter a bit more, because he does have the kind of the arc of he's the one that's got to accept Crosshair back in. Omega's done it. Wrecker takes Omega's word as good as gold. Hunter's the one that needs convincing. And Chris, I'll throw it back to you again, as the person who probably didn't like this episode as much as everybody else. What did you think of Hunter's sort of struggles with Crosshair and the way Crosshair hit back at him?
With Hunter, I wasn't surprised. That's what I would have expected from anyone after going through something like that. So there was really nothing kind of that was too fascinating to me about Hunter. He just was being himself. I did find it interesting that Crosshair had some barbs to throw at Hunter and tried to shift some of the blame of what happened with Omega onto Hunter. I was not expecting that. That was kind of interesting. It Um, if anything, I think it comes from a place of illustrating that Crosshair actually does care about Omega, and that he sees Hunter as failing her to an extent, which is, I think, probably the most interesting takeaway from that interaction. And so in the end, you would hope that Hunter would have the viewpoint of, it's not that Crosshair is trying to attack him and blame him. It's more that he cares so much about Omega that Crosshair, is gonna get a little feisty when discussing what happened, and show some kind of a bit of emotion there. And so, yeah, it was a very interesting sequence.
Knows where to hurt him. He knows if he brings it up, he'll like twist the knife a little bit. Like they've all kind of got that soft spot. So to accuse one of them to be the one responsible for hurting Omega feels like that's a little bit of a kick to the guts.
It's a very family thing to do. Unfortunately, it's just like you. That's what sucks, especially about arguing with family members or people that are close to you, is that they know how to hurt you, you know how to hurt them, and it sucks sometimes because you say things that you regret. And I think, but also a lot of it comes down to truth, and things are said in the heat of the moment that may hurt, but things. And I think there's a lot of truth in what Crosshair said, unfortunately, in regards to, I think at the very least, he is speaking out loud what Hunter has internalized, his own, thing of just like him feeling like a failure and being months without Omega and having to stew on that. And then coming back and Crosshair is the one who truly saved her. He was powerless to do anything. And Crosshair the entire time, from the moment of, as he mentions, sending them the message to try to warn them to helping her escape. It's Crosshair is kind of the real MVP right now, and Hunter has been left in the dust.
What's interesting is I think Hunter maybe has the better case to be angry with Crosshair. I think that, there's Crosshair spent
them all as well.
and I've been like slowly rewatching season 1, like in the lead up to this season, and then as I didn't finish, obviously, so as I've been watching this season, I've been rewatching season 1. So many of those episodes, the plot of the episode is Crosshair is here to kill us. Like he's the villain in like every episode of season 1. So there's a lot of like understandable anger on Hunter's part, but Crosshair, is defensive because he has his reasons. He felt they were valid reasons. He then had his errors thrown in his face, and kind of is maybe even looking to deflect blame here. He goes, "Yeah, I was the bad guy, but I was the bad guy who actually accomplished what you couldn't." And
I'm not the jerk. You guys are the jerks.
Exactly.
And I think it's important to go look back and go like, because we've overanalyze this stuff and looking at it from Crosshair's perspective, especially season 1, and going like, okay, yeah, he thinks that they betrayed him, they never came back for him, blah blah blah. I go back to one of the best quotes of the series from Tech, who says like, just because I understand you doesn't mean that I agree with you. And like ultimately Crosshair was in the wrong, as you said, tried to kill them numerous times. Like he definitely betrayed them. He should have seen what the Empire was doing. He should have not done what he did. And he also owns up to that in this episode. He also blatantly says, I've made mistakes. And I love that last moment of the episode where him and Hunter kind of have this meeting of the minds in regards to like owning up to their mistakes together and saying like, obviously very different mistakes, but still mistakes that they need to forgive themselves for.
Well, and Crosshair does save Hunter at the end of this episode. And he saves the entire Bad Batch by extension from the snow worm, and so in that space again, it's I don't think the trust is there yet, but there's a foundation upon which to build it. And we see that Hunter sort of looks across here and goes, "Okay, I don't necessarily have to watch my back around you constantly. I'm not ready to, completely forgive everything that's happened." But I'm willing to, I think we can find a way to work together. It actually randomly reminds me of an episode of Star Wars Resistance, of all things. There was an episode where,
remember that show, kids?
Yeah, remember that show. Yeah, there was an episode where Yeager's brother comes back, and they gave them like this like traumatic, horrible backstory that they kind of yada yada away in the episode. But Yeager and his brother, like, they didn't get along, and through that episode they're forced to work together. At the end of it, his brother's like, "So we're good," and Yeager goes, "No, but we will be eventually."
Yeah.
And that scene between Hunter and Crosshair, I think at the end is that. I still expect there to be mad tension between the two of them through the rest of the remaining 10 episodes or so. But I think they're gonna find a way to work together as they've
got to walk a line narratively now, because you don't want this, like, if they're just beefing every episode, it's just going to get boring. But at the same time, if they just high-fiving next week, you'll be like, well, that ain't true as well. So it's got to kind of, you've got to find this common ground where you can at least go, all right, I don't expect them to be arguing about everything every time each one opens their mouths. But at the same time, it's got to, like you said, it's got to be a little bit of, heightened tension around it.
Yeah. The character who makes their debut for this season in this episode is Echo, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is the first time we've seen Echo back on the Bad Batch. He kind of sat out the first episodes. Ben, let's go to you. What did you think of Echo's return, and what role do you kind of expect Echo to play in this season coming up?
Yeah, I'm just breathing a sigh of relief that they haven't forgot about Echo again. That he's actually in this show. He's actually part of the Bad Batch. Because that's not to get too negative here, but that's been one of my bigger criticisms of the show. It's just like, it felt like a lot of times they haven't figured out, they haven't really known what to do with Echo. And I think the bigger choices of just like, yes, it makes sense, he would want to be with Rex and do that, but then what comes with that is like, he hasn't been in the show a whole lot, and I really like Echo. He's OG Domino Squad. Like, he's one of like the original clones that we love, going back to Rookies. Like, he's been there from the beginning, and I enjoyed seeing his story go. And he's just a fascinating character. So like, having him back, I think, in this episode was really great. And he got some good stuff to do. He got some good lines, got some things. I like that he wasn't beefing with Tech genuinely. I think he wasn't just beefing with
who?
Tech. Well, we know why, because
boy, they all look the same to me. No. R.I.P. Tech. R.I.P. Tech. He wasn't. We did get that very sad call out of Tech in this episode from Echo, which was tough. But he wasn't beefing with Crosshair the whole time. I like that he was just kind of playing, which I think speaks to like his experience with the Bad Batch. I think goes back to, going back to Clone Wars. It's not like these guys ever like, I feel like some of them just kind of tolerated each other. Like, I feel like they kind of tolerated Crosshair in general, and his antics, his very negative outlook on life. I think like he was good at what he does, and they appreciated his help. But I think they weren't, they cared about each other, but only to a point. I think they were the things. I think Hunter and Crosshair, this is not the first time they've sparred, probably. So I think
especially
the whole idea.
Well, yeah, they're more like a
right,
unit,
exactly. I feel like Omega has brought them closer together. I feel like Omega is kind of the core
rather than a unit. They were a unit. And now they're a family. But there is a tech-sized hole that needs to be filled now. So
giant tech-sized hole. But I just like that. Like, he's here. He's dropping some wisdom. I like his line about you did the right thing. I think it's in this shot right here. He's like, you got out. You did the one thing. Of just like that whole idea of like, you need to help yourself before you can help other people. And but she still helped other people. She helped get Crosshair back, and we're seeing the fruits of that labor. So that's great.
Yeah. I think they're going to do a better job this season of keeping Echo involved in the story. I think this Tantus storyline, it feels important. It feels like this is we know where this season is ultimately headed. We are headed back to Tantus in one form or another.
Is this the end game? Like, is Tantus the end game for the series? Like, is this
that's what it feels like.
Yep.
Yeah. And Echo seems to be very interested in finding that. And he very much implies that Rex is also interested in it. So if the two of them are interested in it, then it seems like that will keep both of those characters more in the fold, keep the Bad Batch more in the fold with what they're doing, and take everything and have it start moving in the direction of, let's figure out where is Tantus, what is going on there, and how do we do our best to stop it.
But, I mean, but this show is... Go ahead.
Sorry, Ben, you go, mate. I was just going to say, is like, just not the foreshadowing too far ahead, but I mean, is this if Tantus is the end game, is this the thing that makes them pack up shop and move to Exegol? That basically everything gets moved into the outer regions because Tantus is compromised or destroyed or whatever. You know, they get the last few tubes out the back door and leave, and effectively that place is done because the Bad Batch come and clear the clones out and level the joint, and that's that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could. And all I was going to add there is, like, this show is not above, like, pulling some really crazy left turns, I think, especially with the villains. Case in point, I forget his name, but bad dude from last season, Admiral Rampart.
Yeah, Rampart, yeah.
Vice Admiral Rampart, like at this point in season 2, it'd be like, oh yeah, Rampart's the big bad. And then all of a sudden, he just gets arrested and he disappears. And then, Hemlock at some point shows up and he's the main villain. So, like, as much as we love Hemlock, and I do believe he's going to be the big bad for this season, we don't know. Maybe they go and they blow up Tantus next episode and something completely different happens after that. I don't know.
Yep.
I did also like that you guys mentioned this. They did mention tech in this episode. I don't think it's like weird or wrong that they haven't mentioned him to this point. There's been a lot of other stuff going on in those first 4 episodes that takes priority over, reflecting on Tech's death. But as they're having that like group meeting around the table on Pabu, and when they mention Tech and there's that kind of moment of silence, I like that they incorporated that into the episode. Clone Wars had this problem and Rebels had this problem too, where like something would happen one week and then it was like nobody ever talks about it again. It's completely forgotten. And it could be something really traumatic, really devastating, like even a death of a character.
Oh, like the biggest tonal whiplash I remember correctly is Carnage of Krell. We get the just heartbreaking death of Waxer. And then the next episode is the first episode of the Zygerian Slavers arc. I believe is this next episode. We get Boyle shows up. No mention of his best friend Waxer dying. No, just nothing. Just nothing. Yeah. We don't get anything from that just tenuous relationship. So yeah, the Clone Wars had that problem.
Yeah, and I think Rebels had it too. And I think part of that was that those shows were still being made with like linear television in mind, and the thought of like being syndicated and like, oh, what if we show the episodes out of order later on, and like that sort of thing. And so like this show being made for streaming, being made with the idea that when people rewatch this, it's not going to be because, oh, I sat down on a random Wednesday or Sunday afternoon and I'm like, oh, what's on television now? Oh, the Bad Batch. That's not going to happen. What's more likely is going to happen in the future when somebody wants to watch the show is they're going to queue up Disney Plus, start with episode 1 Aftermath, and just roll through the entire series. And so it makes more sense to have these moments where the characters, nothing needs to be said in that scene. They're all still devastated by his death. We saw how devastated they were in the season 2 finale. And so they can all just have that kind of moment of togetherness that, again, all of this episode is about building a foundation for Crosshair to regain the trust, and all of them just taking a moment to quietly mourn their friend, including Crosshair. I think, again, it's a small moment, but it adds to the pile that will eventually result in trust being restored.
Speaking of network versus not network, Disney Plus has rolled out a version of itself that's cheaper with ads, and where they put the ads sometimes makes no sense. Like they'll put the ads in the middle of a scene sometimes.
Oh God!
Did they do that in this episode? The beer company opening up, where was it? The South American beer company.
Is that what you got on your? Oh my God!
Disney, you can't tell me Disney look at them going, that's actually a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, somebody needs to pay a little more attention, because I would assume they're still like, scene breaks and things in the show, so it could air on TV hypothetically, but they don't put the ads there all the time. It's very odd.
Yeah, in the first episode, there's like I think it's when the time jump happens, like the very first episode of the season, when the time jump happens, there's like a fade to black, and I remember saying to my friend as we were watching it for the first time, going, commercial break? Like what is this? Why are we fading to black like that? And then it comes back and you realize, it's 100 days later. So
I was trying to record Return of the Jedi on network television in the mid to late 80s, guys, with a remote control that had a cord attached to it to attach the VCR, trying to pause before the ad, when the ad break came in, and then unpause by the time the ads came out. That's how we used to roll back in the day.
Amazing. Amazing. But yeah, I did, Josh. I think you had the right idea, which for anybody that doesn't know what Josh was referencing, somebody on the internet this week dug up these videos of when a TV network in Chile, I want to say, was showing Star Wars back in the early 2000s, and they didn't want to have commercial breaks, so they just like cut the commercials into the episode. So like Obi-Wan goes to get Luke's lightsaber goes to get Anakin's lightsaber to give to Luke in A New Hope, and he opens up the chest, and it opens up, and there's like instead of the chest with the lightsaber, there's like a cooler of beer, and it's like this type of beer that he's.
Right. If you have not seen this, go to YouTube, go to Twitter, look up all of them. They are it's amazing. After 20 years, they finally show up. It's crazy.
It's rightfully so. People are like, oh, that's obviously someone's just faked that and done it. But who would be genius enough to think of of a fake video of something like, you know what I mean? Like, who would be mad enough to think that just for the clicks? It's brilliant. I just love that. Never to be repeated. Anything that happens now will be a poor imitation of that. And that's what the internet's all about.
Now I'm just like, okay, how can they implement this in the modern age? We have a scene like this with Hunter and Omega at a table, and then it zooms in. It's like, Omega, would you like a nice cold glass of Coca-Cola?
It's just so hard because product placement in movies and TV has been around forever, but Star Wars, it'd be blindly obvious if there was a great big Pepsi sign in the back. Superman 2 was always the one I remembered where Superman threw General Zod, one of the guys, into a giant Coca-Cola sign. And he just went into the thing there. But yeah, Star Wars is a bit.
Or a more recent example, when Man of Steel, when he fights Zod in an IHOP.
Which again is what Hannah and I are going to do in a couple years at a celebration.
You're going to destroy that IHOP. You're going to get superpowers. You're going to destroy the IHOP.
Or what they could do, we have the screenshot up for everybody who's just listening of the sort of dinner scene in Hunter and Omega. They have these they look like wooden cups. Replace all of those with the Galaxy's Edge Coca-Cola grenade bottles or something. I think that's where we're going, because I guess those are canon now. If they sell them at Galaxy's Edge, must be canon. Good stuff. I just want to take a moment to highlight Betcher in this episode, because Betcher, amazing. I love the moment when Hunter and Wrecker are going to dig out the snow to get in, and Betcher just runs in. It's like, I got this one, guys, and digs it all out. Amazing. So good. Love this character.
Can I just quickly add something about Betcher? As someone who, Australian, New Zealand is obviously a very close to us. I, as a teenager, had a very big crush on a New Zealand exchange student when I was in high school. She had a very thick New Zealand accent. So I became very transfixed on the New Zealand accent and learnt that in most cases, how E's become A's and A's become I's. They haven't actually got it probably would be bitcher if it was being pronounced.
Say to Michelle Ang, no, not like that. Emphasize
the memes.
Yeah, she's really leaning on Betcher, which is actually, it's not quite. There were probably some notes, I'd say, because she does have a genuine New Zealand accent.
The first take of they're in the studio, and Brad Rao and Jen Corbett are in there. I'm like, all right, Michelle, take it away. And she goes, all right, bitcha, let's go. And they're like, no, no.
We never had this problem with D. Bradley Baker because he's not really New Zealander. So yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, I think it's about that time, Ben. I think it's about that time. You know what time is this? time it is. It's time for everybody's favorite segment. You know it. You know you love it. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben's Connection Corner is filmed in front of a live studio audience. All right, Ben, take it away. What have you got for us?
It's amazing that you bring this up now because I was literally pulling up the episode. I'm like, did I miss anything? Did I get all the notes properly? As to say, I didn't make any notes for this one. Okay. I didn't prepare for this. Because I mean, this wasn't an episode for connections. It hasn't been a lot of connections in general in this things. But there is one big one. In fact, I heard about this in a group chat before I even watched the episode. I woke up the next morning and somebody said, "Oh, this is the Jurassic Park reference." I'm like, okay, all right, here we go. Apparently, whoever Jennifer Corbett, all these people that wrote this, they apparently were watching a lot of Jurassic Park when they were making this show, because we have yet another very blatant one. Obviously, when Wrecker goes to the whatever they call it, the power room, the breaker box. Obviously, he can't just flip a switch. He has to, quote, pump up to get a charge, which is exactly what Ali Slatter does in Vice Admiral Holdo, I should say, does in Jurassic.
Yeah, come on, man, get it right.
Park. Yeah, so
great arm fall on top of.
Just a random Mace Windu just shows up with one arm. Real weird. But yeah, that was basically it. I mean, I'll keep the Jurassic Park references coming. I love this. I love the Bad Batch. It's just I mean, I love that basically like Betcher is just a dinosaur dog. Like he's just basically like he's a dinosaur in Star Wars. Like basically, like he's kind of like whatever you call a triceratops or whatever else. Like he's just very, very dinosaur like. Look, they keep saying she.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going with. Look, I get it, Omar. She's very ugly, but in my opinion, she's so ugly, she's adorable. So, and just being the goodest girl possible and digging anywhere and doing all the stuff is just making, I love Batch.
My sister had the world's ugliest dog. And so I completely, it was an albino boxer Rottweiler cross.
Oh, wow.
Oh my god!
Okay. And it was like red eyes. Wow. She loved that dog, so I can certainly see the love for the hideous.
There is a competition. There is a competition somewhere about world's ugliest
dogs.
Sure.
Yeah, that dog probably would have won.
Amazing. So that's it, Ben. That's the only connection you've got is to Jurassic.
I'm watching the episode now. I don't see anything else.
You know what? I'll give it to you this week because like even the StarWars.com trivia guide. I
haven't looked at that.
It's pretty pathetic. It's like it's the same. This is the same planet we saw in season 2. Also, the Bad Batch is on Pabu. It's like, yeah, anyone with eyes can figure that one out, guys. You don't need to give us those trivia notes.
Crosshair gets his old uniform back that he wore in earlier episodes.
they don't even have that one, but they do have Omega gets a new costume. And it's like, okay, yeah, I saw that. That's not trivia. Come on.
What is this, Ben's Connection Corner? Pointing out obvious things? Come on.
Well, it's maybe for the best because that meant we had a nice short edition of everyone's favorite segment, Ben's Connection Corner. Connections in the corner with Ben. It's Ben's Connection Corner. Do.
How's it going, everybody?
Ben's Connection Corner is filmed in front of a live studio audience. All right. Anything else anyone wants to bring up about this episode, or should we do final thoughts and scores out of 10? I think I'm going to take that silence to mean it's time for final thoughts.
Boy, you didn't give us much time to think, did you? Jeez.
I know. You had the first hour of the show and also all the time since the episode aired until now. You could have thought of something, Ben.
Yeah, I know.
And for that,
I always have these thoughts when I'm not here. Okay, that's my problem.
Well, just for that, Ben. Usually we give you a break after Ben's Connection Corner, but we're not going to. We're going to go right back to you. Final thoughts and scores out of 10. Score out of 10 for the return. Yeah.
Me a break? Never. No, this was, like I said, I really did enjoy these episodes. I really have been satisfied by these past few episodes. I'm not going to like completely disagree with like some of the criticisms I've seen shows. I was like some episodes have felt slower than others and haven't quite moved the plot along as quickly as I would like. But ultimately, I think it's giving me what I want from this show, and giving the characters, I think, what they really need, and some moments to breathe, some moments to get together. And apparently, next week, it's a 2-parter. So I don't know what to think about that and what's going to be happening there. But I won't even mention the titles because I feel like the titles might actually be a spoiler. So we'll just leave that for next week. But it's going to be wild. But I just... staying on these episodes, I think they were obviously amazingly animated, everything like that. But also, I think great going back to the outpost, going back to that thing, giving Crosshair a moment in the things, and ultimately having him playing off Hunter, I think was brilliant. So you know what? I'm gonna stick with my gut here. I'm gonna stick with I've been hanging all of my my ratings around 8, so I'm gonna stick with 8 on this one. Solid 8.
8 out of 10 for Ben. Josh, what about you? Final thoughts, score out of 10 for The Return.
It was good, solid episode. It's not earth shattering. Did what it needed to do. Needed to get everybody on the right track, moving forward to bigger and better things. So yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. I'll give it a 7.
7 out of 10 from Josh. Chris, final thoughts, score out of 10.
Yeah. I feel like they could have just a little bit more could have happened in this episode. I don't know what, but it just felt to me like there wasn't enough in the episode. If you're going for like a perfect episode, it wasn't perfect. It was still good. It was still enjoyable. It's still an important part of the season. There were still some really great important moments in the episode, namely all of the stuff we talked about between Crosshair and Hunter. But yeah, in general, it's definitely, I would say, one of the probably the weakest episode of the season so far, and hopefully it kind of picks up a little bit from here. So I'll also give it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. I'm going to go high on this one and give it a 9 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed how this episode picked up on the storylines. I love what it's sort of setting up in terms of the new evolving dynamic of the Bad Batch. The sort of the showdown between Hunter, or not even showdown, the just sort of face off between Hunter and Crosshair, I thought was really a strong part of the episode. And I thought they used that kind of, admittedly, sort of, I don't want to say the word weak, because that's not the word I'm looking for, but the kind of soft A plot of what they were doing. I thought they used that as a really good vehicle for what we really wanted to see, or what I really wanted to see, which was, the actual sort of, the characters grappling with what they've been through and trying to reconcile after the events of the previous season. So big, strong episode as far as I'm concerned. So I'll give it a 9 out of 10. All right. Josh, how are you looking for time, bud?
I'm not too bad. I'm probably going to have to shoot off very shortly. I have to go to a wedding shortly. Not my own wedding, which I'm going to wear. Yeah, I'd just be wearing my Chris Hall, Luke Skywalker t-shirt, created by our friend, wonderful artist Chris Hall. So no, I'm not wearing that, but I am going to a wedding shortly. So I'm just keeping an eye on my family, which is going to pull up out the front of my house shortly. If you see me sort of side eye to the side, I'm just in the front of my front room of my house.
Can we get some wedding content? Can you just take the camera with you? Just
I could, if you really want to content of strangers, my cousin's wedding that people who don't know. I could if you really wanted, but
da, 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 da. Hey, I really like the Bad Batch this week. Can you shut up?
I could just go around, do some voice pops like I'm at Celebration, running around with a recorder, sticking it in people's faces that are wedding going. What are your thoughts of the Star Wars Underworld guys? Want to know what you're going on about? What do you thought of the Bad Batch? Like who and what?
Amazing. All right, so you let us know when you got to go.
I will. Don't worry. You'll know. I'll be like,
you'll just be walking away.
Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah.
All right. Well, in that case, let's get to some news here, and we'll start with the long-awaited release of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Andor. On Blu-ray, that is on Blu-ray and 4K
Physical media.
Ultra physical media. This is the second time they've done release of a Star Wars Disney Plus streaming series on in physical media. I guess the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian are also available to own this way. But what's nice about this is that they're actually coming with new bonus features, which, if I'm not mistaken, those Mando ones were just like, here's the episodes, enjoy. That's basically what
they
happened.
have the gallery stuff on them.
Yeah, maybe they had the gallery, but these ones are.
I have walked by them in Walmart and I've admired them from afar. I can't stay any further.
Well, you can't get Disney new release DVDs in Australia now. They have tapped out of Australia.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So I don't know, because part of this deal I heard is that Sony have picked up some of their physical media rights. So I don't know whether that means that we'll be able to get them or not. But I think at the moment, I think some of my Australian-based mates have ordered from overseas, and like you can't get Dial of Destiny on Blu-ray or DVD in Australia.
Wow!
So much so that I've seen on Facebook Marketplace people like made bootlegs and are like selling them. I guess that we're back to these days. We're back to the bootlegs will be back before you know it. It'll be guys on street corners handing out burnt DVD versions of Andor, so you can watch it at home.
I got a Mando, I got an Andor, I got an Obi-Wan.
Got
right
like
here.
a whole crate of it. Like, just give me all of them and I'll take them home.
I'm just trying to quickly see if there was any special features for Mando, because I'm pretty sure there wasn't, and I think that was a main reason for me going like, why would I buy this?
Give me commentary tracks. I love commentary tracks.
Yeah, I don't think it was anything. This is more extravagant because it has Obi-Wan has a director's commentary from Deborah Chow. You have some little featurettes with Tony Gilroy and Diego Luna, and Kathleen Kennedy, I believe, is involved with that.
Yeah,
too,
so we'll go through them. For Obi-Wan, you get Duels of Fate, Obi-Wan versus Vader. Deborah Chow, Ewan McGregor, and Hayden Christensen examine the lightsaber battles of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. The Dark Times villains uncover the lore of the deadly Inquisitors and Darth Vader's iconic look. Designing the Galaxy, say hello to Leia's lovable sidekick Lola, then explore the new planets of the Star Wars galaxy. And the director's commentary with Deborah Chow for the season finale. With Andor, they say the bonus features. There's Ferrex Part 1, Imperial Occupation, with Tony Gilroy, Kathleen Kennedy, and Diego Luna talking about the series' origins. There's a featurette about the Aldani heist, one about the Coruscant storylines, one about Narkina 5, and then another one about the finale two-parter on Ferrex. Interesting to note, Andor is billed as the complete first season. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the complete series. So
man,
maybe it'll be called something. Maybe the next season will be called something different.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be
commentary track on Andor.
Aunt
Is
Peru.
a bummer.
I'm waiting for our Aunt Peru.
Yeah, commentary track would have been
anybody. It doesn't have to be Tony Gilroy, or just get Andy Serkis or anybody.
Diego
somebody.
Luna.
Just anybody slightly involved. Just like you guys do a commentary track, put it on there. Anybody do
commentary track from Uncle Harlow.
Yeah, the mysterious Uncle Harlow reveals himself to be just the guy.
Fiona Shaw, which I only found out today. Fiona Shaw, who plays Cassian's mother in that, was in the '90s Super Mario Brothers movie, which I discovered today.
She
really?
Google it.
Wow,
looking pretty. Woo, hubba hubba too. Like 90s Fiona Shaw.
I can only imagine with that movie the clips that I've seen.
90s hair, yeah.
Oh man. So the series, these two DVDs or these two Blu-rays will come out on April 30th, and you can start pre-ordering them as of March 12th. So
where's the VHS?
No VHS, sadly. No VHS, no Betamax, no none of that. But these two, like the Mando ones, when they announced them, I was like, what is the point? Why would I do that? Between all of the shows that have been ripped off of streaming in the last little while, and the fact that they are actually bothering to put like new interesting special features, I'm like, okay, I think these are going to be my first Star Wars physical media purchases since the Rise of Skywalker Blu-ray in early 2020, which was more to complete the set than anything.
You kind of go, oh, isn't that great that they're doing it? Wonderful. We can own it at home. But you kind of go, oh, maybe this just means that they are gonna take it off and make you pay for it again if you want to watch it. Like they pulled Willow. There's no reason why they wouldn't just go, hey, you know what? Everyone who's going to watch this ever has watched it.
Yeah. And where the hell is the Willow like Blu-ray release? Like I'm genuinely serious about this. Like if you're not going to have it available for streaming, at least let me buy the freaking thing. Like,
so insane. It's just like it's amazing. Of like these companies are like, you think they like money a lot. They're in business to make money, but then they're like, no, Australians, we don't want your money for our physical releases. Like, just screw you, keep your money. And then you have this whole series that I know probably wasn't the most popular thing of the couple of years ago, but like a lot of people watched it and liked it, and a lot more people would watch it and like it if they could watch it.
Yeah,
I think they're not done with Willow. I don't think that means they're going to make more necessarily, but I think they think that they can either sell it on or put it on another platform and maybe go, you can make another series if you want. Like, I think they still think there's some value on it, even if they don't want to show it on Disney, that they want to
definitely, because what was it? Wasn't that Spiderwick Chronicles show? Wasn't it supposed to be on Disney Plus or something? And then now it's going to Roku now.
Changed over, yeah. There's a few that have changed hands and they've moved platforms, so they might be going. We might be able to, get Amazon to cough off some money for this, and you'll get season 1 as part of the deal to do it to make the second season. So we're not
on probably a year since Willow disappeared. So like, what the heck? Like, it seemed like they would have worked out something by now.
Yeah. Otherwise, Warwick Davis is going to go over to Bob Iger's house and throw a flaming bottle through his front window.
He'll cast a spell on him.
As well he should. But yeah,
guys, I've got to roll off. Sorry, just before you go any further. I'm sorry to have to do. I mean, I wish I could hang around all day. It's just nice seeing you guys, catching up. It's been too long.
Yeah,
it's been great having you on, Josh. Thanks for being on. Quick, plug your stuff before you go.
Yeah, I do a podcast called Star Wars Spelt Out, which has been going for a few years, where we just usually have guests and people on. You guys have definitely been on some of the blog pods. I don't think you've been guests. We'll rectify that because I'm always looking for guests. And we just generally chit-chat Star Wars, have a good time, semi-regularly come out. Also got a YouTube channel at the moment. I'm trying to do a complete Kenner collection, 80s Kenner run of figures.
Nice.
Wow.
So I've actually been documenting the last few hauls of stuff that I've got where I've spent, money on a box of figures. Well, I bought a box of figures from the Netherlands, not that long ago, which turned up, and I was hoping they'd actually have figures and things. So if you want to have a look at that, that's just on YouTube. You just Google Star Wars Spelt Out. And hopefully I will see you guys in Japan.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's sooner than you think. We'll be there.
Like you said, 13 months, 14 months away.
Will be there. We go anywhere. So it's the closest we're ever going to get to Australia. At least it's in the Asian Pacific. It's somewhat related. Like Australia plays in Asia in the soccer, so it's technically
there you go
an Asian Star Wars celebration. So a pleasure, guys. Anytime you want to have me back on, give us a yell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to see you. I'll let you guys roll on, finish off without me.
All right. Thank you, Josh.
Much appreciated, my friend.
Take care out there.
Yeah, I think I think Josh made a good point that like maybe like the fact that they are getting around to releasing some of these things, like should that be maybe a bit of a warning sign that one of the original pitches behind Disney Plus was that there was going to be no more Disney Vault, which was a thing like that when we were kids. What happened where like certain Disney movies wouldn't be available to buy on VHS. Right. Good thing Hannah isn't here to make fun of us. But there's there were certain movies that wouldn't be available to buy on VHS because they were in the Disney Vault. And to this day, my father holds a grudge against the Walt Disney Company because my brother got a picture book of the Disney Peter Pan animated movie and desperately wanted to see the movie. And my dad like went on this hunt to find a VHS of the Peter Pan movie with all of its problematic content and everything. and so like to this day, the fact that it was such a like an irritant to him, where he's like, it's like what we were saying about the Willow thing. he wanted to give them his money. His kid wants to see this movie. He wants to watch this movie. Why can't he buy this movie? Because it's in the vault. And it was all a marketing ploy because then they could take something out of the vault and sell it. And
it's like Mexican pizza.
Sure, whatever that means.
It's like the McRib sometimes.
Oh, that's a good example.
There you go. But it's so that was part of the original pitch was there's no more Disney Vault. Everything's available all the time. And like within a year, they're pulling stuff off there. They pull Willow, they pull the Mighty Ducks series, they pull a few other things like, and those are for lack of a better term in the Disney Vault. And I don't think Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to go in there, but the whole reason they pull these shows seems to be some sort of like tax write-off or because they take up too much space on the servers or whatever it is. And what if one day they go, you know what? Taking up too much space, or we can get some money for this. We can get a tax write-off. Let's pull Obi-Wan Kenobi, and if people want it, they can go buy the freaking Blu-ray. That might be where we're headed. I don't know.
Could be. I think right now, I feel like a lot of I think the reason the Star Wars and Marvel shows and a lot of things that are still on the service is because they bring in numbers. Like they get watched. There's a lot of watch hours put into those things. They're probably constantly being rewatched and rewatched. Because people like us, but also new people that haven't seen this stuff are discovering it. So I think it's incredibly popular franchise. Obviously, Willow, Mighty Ducks, those are more obscure, not as much things they can kind of justify. Well, it's not being watched that much. Like we can kind of make this disappear, and not as many people will miss it. But I mean, there still could get to a point where it's just like, oh, we're only 12 people watched Obi-Wan Kenobi today, so we can justify pulling it off and just having it be exclusive, and that will drive up disc sales for this because now that it's on shelves, go buy it instead of being on the service.
So Ben, as a big MCU guy, let me ask you this:
right?
How much reaction do you think there would be if they pulled like Secret Invasion off Disney Plus? If they're
people would cheer. People would there would be rejoicing in the streets. It's like, there would be like hit pieces on like YouTube channels like that. Does this mean Secret Invasion is canon? Is not canon? Like is MCU finally admitting their mistakes? But that would be cringe stuff like that. But also I'm thinking like, okay, what's the most popular series on the thing? Like, I don't know what is the most popular series?
The Mandalorian.
No, I'm talking about like Marvel wise.
Oh, probably like Loki or something.
Yeah.
Loki. People would be rioting. Like people would be rioting for Loki, but like they're not going to do that because it is popular. People are watching it, but at the same time, could they? Because it's not. They are doing this because in part with this announcement, they also announced that I believe it's Falcon and Winter Soldier and what was the other one? I don't think it was Moon Knight. I should have the things. It was two big ones that they're pulling up that are older series. Like they did WandaVision previously, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like
it was Moon Knight. I was right.
Really? Okay, Moon Knight.
I have the Variety headline here: Andor, Moon Knight, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier to bow on Blu-ray with deleted scenes featurettes.
All right. Okay. Wow. So yeah, that's a weird phrase. Like it makes sense. Hello. It makes sense that like maybe they're just now catching up. Falcon and Winter Soldier was famously like one of the first Marvel.
That was one of the first ones. Yeah,
like it was the second one after WandaVision. It started right afterwards. And so WandaVision's already got but Moon Knight was a good bit down the road with that. It was like that came out not last year, but the year before, I think. So like it's relatively new, but also maybe not as popular. I don't know what factors they factor in for doing this kind of stuff and what could potentially make them pull something off the site to say, oh, this is now a disc exclusive which like I suppose at least they give us away. Back to Willow, can't find it anywhere. You can't buy it, can't stream it anywhere. It's not free on Roku. It's not things they aren't, it's nothing.
I have to imagine there's something else going on there other than it's just not popular. Like to not have any way to buy it, to not even be able to purchase it for digital download.
Put it on, let me buy it on YouTube.
There has to be there's such the amount of obscure movies and TV shows that you can just buy on YouTube or get sent to Tubi or some like C-level streaming service.
Rarely do you come across something that's like not impossible to watch, but hard to watch. Like it's behind a paywall. You have to be signed up to Stars in order to through Hulu to watch. I've done that whole thing. So like it's crazy.
There has to be. We got to find out. We need to do some investigative reporting. We have to find out the real reason for this because it cannot be just not enough people watched it. Like that doesn't make any sense to have it be available absolutely nowhere. There has to be something internally where there's some major problem with it being out there. I don't know.
In the meantime, if you want to watch Willow, come see me. Wink, wink. DM me. I'm a pirate, y'all.
Southern pirate, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that the trades keep reporting is like it's some kind of tax write-off, and I don't understand.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing that's happening with WB and everything.
I forgot about that. If there's no way to watch it, you can say that it didn't come out, you can't profit off of it, and thus all of the money counts as a loss and not an investment or whatever.
Like Warner Brothers deleted Batgirl, and they're in the process of deleting Coyote versus Acme just so they can have the tax write-off because money.
That's absolutely horrible to say. We'll make more money off of your show not airing.
Yeah, that's
not right. There should be the next union negotiation they have that better come up.
Yeah, really.
They're not allowed to do that.
It's almost like only having a couple of companies control the entire entertainment industry is a bad thing. It's almost like that. Almost.
Where's Teddy Roosevelt when you need him?
Yeah.
Where's Betty?
Time for some trust busting. Old fashioned trust busting. All right. All right. Let's keep going here. We got some other Star Wars news. We just took some shots at Disney. Now let's talk about something that's kind of cool that they're actually doing, which is updating Star Tours at Walt Disney World, Disneyland, and Disneyland Paris. Starting April 15th, there will be a whole new mission, like a whole new planet that you can go to, which is Peridia from Ahsoka, which is in another galaxy. So does that mean the Star Tours bus can travel to another galaxy?
Here's a note that I have about this. So they not only said it's Peridia that you're going to be going to, they released footage of this.
Yeah.
But the footage, it really looks like CTOS. It looks like the sequence on CTOS where they're flying through the clouds and the space whales are there, whatever else. My theory on this is that we will start on CTOS, or maybe it'll just be in the clouds, and then you'll be like, "Oh, Thrawn, they're going to go escape and get Thrawn." And then the Star thing gets caught up in like the trails of the hyperspace thing, and you go to Peridia through that.
Yeah,
in like 5 seconds because it's Star Tours.
Yeah, but then does the ride end where you're still trapped in the other galaxy? It's like, guess what? You guys can't go home now.
Because I mean, I think for a while there, they had it stuck where you landed on Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
But then there's other I really liked it because like sometimes you would you'd land on Naboo and then skip across the water and then go headfirst into a thing and get a pit droid through your shield.
Right at your face. Yeah.
Like there's a few different endings.
Yeah,
hope we get a Peridia ending. Like what would that Peridia ending be on?
Yeah, well, it'd probably be we're trapped, we're doomed.
Existential crisis. Spoilers, guys. You're trapped in another galaxy forever.
Hope you enjoyed the ride. Here's an existential crisis. That's really cool because the one that they put out for The Last Jedi that ended with the Battle of Crate you'd go from Crate to Batuu and end up there. And for a while there, that like in the lead up to an immediate aftermath of The Last Jedi, that was the only way to end the ride. You would get some choice in the first half, not choice, but the sort of randomness in the first half. They've subsequently, and I've noticed this in my more recent trips to Disneyland, I think they've taken the sequel trilogy content out.
Really?
Because you never get it anymore. The only time I got sequel trilogy stuff in the last 3 years, and admittedly, I go once or twice a year. So there's probably people who are annual pass
Still
holders.
once, twice a year. You
yeah,
see how
yeah.
nonchalantly
Yeah.
he says it.
Can't wait to go in July. But I'm sure there are people that go all the time that will speak differently. But like the only time I remember getting sequel trilogy stuff was during Celebration when we did Star Wars Night at the park. And that night there was sequel trilogy stuff, and I think there was like one of the Star Tours, like the actual like movement ride things, was set to just give you sequel trilogy stuff, and the other ones were giving you the stuff from the classic saga.
And clearly this means that Disney is finally confirming that the sequel trilogy is not canon, because obviously they're wiping it out from Star Tours. That's what that means.
But like it's really weird, right? Because like Star Tours was giving you prequel content when it wasn't cool to give you prequel content. You were going to Naboo, there were Gungans, you were going to Kashyyyk, there were Wookiees. Like you were getting prequel content because George designed the ride, and he was like, no, you're gonna have all of my movies are gonna be in there. So like it gave you that stuff. And so even though maybe the sequel trilogy in the sort of immediate aftermath of it, the same way the prequel trilogy in the immediate aftermath of it didn't seem to have the same staying power as the classic films from before it. So it does seem like they've kind of pulled that stuff from the ride, and that you don't go to Jakku, you don't go to Crate, you don't go to the one for Rise of Skywalker, which I guess is Kefir, which I still haven't been on that one. I don't know. I've gotten all the Star Tours things except that one.
Like maybe once. I forgot all
Yeah.
about that one.
that's
I was
the
gonna
one
say
I've
like
been
you
on the
skipped
most.
Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, so you probably went like right in the lead up to or aftermath of Rise of Skywalker, and they're
Yes.
like, all you get is Kefir.
Exactly.
That's everything.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But
Yeah.
since then, it's all but vanished. I'd love to.
The
I'd love to
only
get it.
thing, the only thing that I will say on this, and this is thin paper thin logic here, but go with it. Maybe being that Rise of the Resistance is a thing, and the Galaxy's Edge, which is not like Star Tours is a separate thing.
Star Tours.
It's in both land and world. Star Tours is on another side of the park. Like they want to keep the sequel trilogy stuff maybe exclusive to Galaxy's Edge, and they want to partition it in a way which I'm just like, I don't even buy that logic, but it is Disney we're talking
Seems
about.
like the sort of dumb thing somebody would come up with, but it is dumb.
Right.
But I fully believe it might be a thing.
But if you went last week and you went to Kefir, let us know.
Yeah, please do. And yeah, and also tell me how to be the rebel spy. I've never been the rebel spy. I want to be the rebel spy.
Tell me your secret.
But in addition to the Peridia mission or visit or whatever you want to call it in Star Tours, also was part of Star Tours, a character comes in and gives you an urgent message. An urgent message. You'll get one from Admiral Akbar, from Yoda, from Princess Leia. I think the only sequel trilogy one that's still in there is BB-8. BB-8 will still come and give you your emergency message. But going forward, you'll also be able to get ones from Cassian Andor, as played by Diego Luna, from Din Djarin and Din Grogu, as well as Ahsoka Tano, as played by Rosario Dawson. So there you go. There you go.
Sweet.
Yeah. So between April 5th, also in addition to this, between April 5th and June 2nd, there'll be Seasons of the Force at Disneyland in California. So you'll actually be able to do Hyperspace Mountain, which is like a reskin of Space Mountain, just to give it a little Star Wars-y fun, which is excellent. So yeah, it's a little bit of fun there. If you're going to Disney parks this summer, something new to look forward to. All right, let's get to Ask the SWU. This is the part of the show where we hear from you. We hear from the listeners. We answer your questions. You can submit them via Super Chat if you're listening live, or you can do, as many of our listeners do, you can join the Discord and post your questions in there. And we'll start with the Discord. This one comes from Nurka, who says, "Hey gang, with Crosshair's arc over in the last episode 5, do we think that Crosshair's hand will heal like his relationship with Hunter, or will he never be a sharpshooter again?" Yeah, that's something we didn't talk a ton about, but his hand, something's going on there. Hannah called it last week that there was something with his hand, and we really saw it in this episode.
I could see it going both ways. I could see it either being something that he has to live with, that like the Batch, like he never had that arc where he's like, the Batch has gone through like, oh, well, what do we do? And we have to find different skills. And we're going to hang out on this Pabu. We have to find other ways to use our skills, that doesn't involve killing people. Like he hasn't gone that route. So I think this could be kind of a precursor to him to being like, well, I can't be a sharpshooter. I literally can't. This is going to force him into doing some more mundane task or finding a way to retire and find peace with what he's done. And also, I think maybe the more likely outcome is that he will find a way to heal it, and it'll come back in some way. Just his struggle for the next little bit is trying to get rid of that quake in his hand.
As he heals his soul, his hand will heal. Exactly. It's a visual representation. Yeah, and I don't think the Crosshair storyline is over. I don't think his arc is over. I think that's something that's going to continue to play out over the rest of the season. But I definitely think that the hand thing is going to factor into it. I do want to say, there's the scenes with AZ holding the fruit. I want to know from Brad Rao or Jen Corbett or somebody if it was ever considered to have AZ put the Jogan fruit on his head like an apple with the arrow with the arrow kind of thing. So, because I felt like that was a missed opportunity. That seemed like that would have been a really on brand for the Bad Batch and a little.
Also,
AZ.
we didn't talk about it. AZ.
Yeah,
I thought he got like lost last season. Like I was surprised to see him here, to be honest, in this episode.
I can't leave.
I mean, I am an AZ fan. I love AZ. He's the OG. Like, you can't leave him behind. But like, I believe the last time we saw him, he was hanging out in what's her name's bar. So like, I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I'm gonna have to review the footage and see like when's the last time we saw him, because like I genuinely thought like we're never gonna see AZ again.
Yeah. Just from the live chat, Mike McCormick says, I saw Kef Beer and Exegol at Tokyo Disneyland 2 weeks ago. So either they're more willing to do the prequel stuff at Tokyo Disneyland, or I just have really bad luck with the auto generator.
I think you have bad luck.
I also went like years without seeing Tatooine. Like I never got to be in the pod raids. I never got Tatooine. So anyways, so so that's very, very possible as well. All right, let's go back to the Discord. This one comes from Vlad Sander, says, hello there. So the return, brilliant. Yes, I agree, Vlad. Do you think that planet now holds special significance for Crosshair? He now has had 2 life-changing events on that planet at that base. His return with Hunter to the base echoed his time with Mayday. This time, though, he was welcomed back as a brother instead of as an expendable item. I'm curious, do you think that we may see an insane Jedi clone at some point, like a Joris Sabaoth? So first off, the planet holding special significance for Crosshair. Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that's the point of that scene with the helmets. Is like that this is a meaningful place to him. And I want to, we don't talk a ton about the animation, but man, Crosshair's face in that scene. I've never seen that character look like that. There was Crosshair either always looks to be in pain, like he's miserable and in pain, or he's like brooding and being dark. And in that moment, there was like just such a raw humanity to him as he was looking at those helmets. It's just brilliant. Just brilliant. But yeah, insane Jedi. What do we think?
So kind of like sounds like a Force Unleashed type situation there. I mean, it's interesting that Star Killer stuff, of all the things that were kind of removed from canon with the Disney realignment, not a lot from the Force Unleashed has been brought back, which there's a lot of really good stuff in there. Like, unless I'm mistaken, Maris Brood, I don't think has been brought into canon. Juno Eclipse.
Nope.
What about Ram Koda? I feel like Ram Koda might have been mentioned at some point, but maybe not.
Mentioned.
Yeah, maybe mentioned.
I don't recall though.
But there's so much good stuff from those games. And one of them is the concept of Star Killer and like the force sensitive clones, and that's pretty cool.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
No, I'm just kind of spitballing here. Like I like, I mean, where Bad Batch is going here and where it could be, and the whole idea of like cloning Force users. That's the thing that like Force Unleashed Force Unleashed 2 goes into, is just like, oh, you can't clone Jedi, you can't do this, and like you would think that like this discussion had to have happened at some point, because surely if cloning is just like such a mundane, like it seemed like in Star Wars, it's like you can just clone anybody, like just whatever, you just order a bunch of clones, like just whatever, it's no big deal. Like someone would have tried to have cloned the Jedi, like someone would try to clone, like, because like why wouldn't you? Why do you pick Jango Fett? Why don't you clone a Jedi? Why weren't the clones of the Clone Wars a bunch of clones of Sifo Dyas like that? Right. Like, and I think the answer to that is like maybe it doesn't work out, but then you have what's going on perhaps with Project Necromancer and what's going on in Exegol and all that kind of stuff. Like there's a lot of questions there that I think could be answered and could be answered in a variety of ways. Maybe one being that a mad Jedi clone shows up. Maybe one of Asajj Ventress.
That's where I was wondering if that's where we were going to go with this, because I think so. Hemlock is a guy that's really interested in studying science, and he seems to have an interest in the science of the Force. I mean, there's all the talk about M counts and that sort of thing, and Project Necromancer seems to allude to Palpatine cheating death again post Return of the Jedi. So he would probably want to, as Palpatine himself would say, embrace a larger view of the Force, and the Night Sister magic seems to be that. And perhaps, while studying that, he would go to Dathomir and, hey, here's a body that could be, a source for cloning, of a source that was, had a high M count to begin with, and, could go in that direction. So that could be interesting. And Palpatine always seemed to have had some kind of interest in the Night Sisters. This is part of the backstory that's maybe a little fuzzy in terms of canon, but I'm pretty sure Maul, Maul comes from Dathomir, and he was Palpatine's apprentice. I think in Legends, at least, Mother Talzin gave Maul to Palpatine, and so there seems to be an interest there. So possibility for something perhaps. And Night Sister magic is just another sort of interpretation of the Force, and based on Ahsoka, we could maybe assume that that's like an interpretation of the Force that has its origins in another galaxy, right? Like the Great Mothers live on Peridia, and they are very much that classic Night Sister. Maybe that's where Night Sister magic comes from. It's a way of tapping into the Force that was developed in another galaxy. So anywho, to answer the Ramkota question, according to Wikipedia, Ramkota's name is carved into the wall of the safe house on Mapuzo.
That's it.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, I remember that appearing at some point. I just can't remember when. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
there's a lot of Easter eggs.
Yeah,
the
trivia gallery for part 3 of Obi-Wan Kenobi lists a whole bunch of names, including Din Altis, Roganda Ismarin, and Nikos Mar from the Legends novel Star Wars Children of the Jedi from 1995, Valen Halcyon from the X-Wing novel series and its spinoffs, Erica Zonder and Drake Logan from the online exclusive web strips that were released in 2004. Wow, what a team! Got Tiberius Anderlock from the Star Wars Galaxy video game, Ku Ron from Star Wars Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2, Ramkota from The Force Unleashed, and Seer Junda from Jedi Fallen Order, Fable Aston and Corwin Shelvey from role-playing games released in the 1990s. Jeez.
Let's go.
Deborah Chow. All right. Yeah. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Love that. Love that.
But I mean, hey, here's an idea. Here's a free idea for you, Disney Plus. Like Tales of the Jedi starring Ramkota. Like, I always love the idea of that
Please.
character of just like, oh, here's this guy who somehow doesn't like the clones, doesn't trust the clones. Fair enough. And recruits his own army to fight the Clone Wars. Like, that's crazy. And then like once Order 66 happens, he just disappears. And like that's a really interesting hook for a story.
Yeah.
It's
Pretty good. Pretty good. All right, next up from the chat, we've got one from Dr. Hugh 17 who says, judging by some of the things that have happened or are due to happen, do you think that the Bad Batch is pointing towards towards a clone trooper rebellion of sorts? While I'm not expecting it to be on the same scale as Battlefront 2, the original 2005 Battlefront 2, that is, Clone Rebellion, I am connecting as many possible hints as I can, especially with what was discussed during the return.
I mean, something's got to happen to all of them.
Yeah, I think it's this Exegol thing. I think they want to, one of the things that Echo says in this episode after going through Nalice's iPad there is, boy, there's a lot more clones on Mount Tantus than we thought. And I think it maybe won't take the form of like a rebellion, but like some sort of like massive rescue mission to Mount Tantus.
It is interesting because I think it's also worth pointing out that like there's a lot of clones that are being held prisoner in Tantus, but there's also a lot of clones working for the Empire on Tantus. You clearly not only see the clone commandos, and you see Scorch, you hear their voices confirming that they are clones, and there's also these, for lack of a better term, these X-clones, like these clones that from, I think it was from the middle of season 2, where they capture one of them and then he's like, oh, I'm a believer and all this kind of stuff. And like that whole idea keeps coming back. And because now you see one, I think in this first or third episode, just hanging around on Tantus near the vault. So I'm like, okay, where are they going with that? Like, are we not just talking about a clone rebellion, but more or less a clone civil war? Like you're going to have, I mean, when it comes down to a fight, a big old fight, there's going to be some clones that are going to stick with the Empire. And that's going to be really bad because the clones are all about loyalty to each other. One of the most horrifying moments in the Clone Wars is clones fighting each other and killing each other. Like it's a really big deal for them. So are they going to be able to do that? And, I'm very curious to see where this goes next few episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to see for sure. Yeah, man. Interesting. Yeah. The clone story isn't done. I think safe to say. At least we've got this season to go. And then who knows what comes after that. Next up, we've got one from Ingenious who says, which return was most impactful? Pabu, AZ3452186962464987247. Echo, Crosshair's armor, the outpost, the toothpick, etc. etc. Obviously, the most impactful. I will say, Crosshair being back in his armor was fairly moving. I gotta say, that was a moment I wasn't expecting.
Because we haven't. Correct me if I'm wrong here. We haven't seen him in it since episode 1 of the show, since Aftermath, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, that's definitely, I mean, honorable mention to the toothpick. But seeing him in that armor, because I love that like everyone else's armor is kind of like they've souped it up and it's also very worn, and like his armor is just like, yeah, it's just been sitting around. It's the same as it always was.
Yeah, and it's visual storytelling too, of like, the Bad Batch, the rest of them have been through something intense and they've changed and evolved and grown. And Crosshair has done that, but he's done that separately. So he sort of stands out as being different, where once he looked like part of the team, now you can tell there's something different about him.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Next question comes from Matthew, co-host of Ion Cannon and the Tractor Beam on this very channel, who asks, as his challenge, think of a sillier article concept than this. And he links to an article that says all 12 members of the Phantom Menace Jedi Council ranked by threat level in battle. So number 12 is Yariel Poof. Number 1, Mace Windu, and the rest of the Jedi are ranked in between there. Sillier
How is
concept.
Oppo Rancis is not number 1? Like, like the dude's a snake.
Oh, man.
I hate snakes.
Oppo Rancis is number 10.
See, this list is bogus.
Just above Adigalia and just behind Eve Koth. So sillier. What's a listicle? I don't know. What's a all rebellion pilots ranked by what?
Top 10 Star Wars good boys.
It's all rebellion. All the pilots from A New Hope ranked by what they're most likely to put on a pizza. I don't know.
You know what I think is the best list ever?
What's that?
The top 2 Sith.
We rank the Sith and the Phantom Menace.
Yeah. Based on their effectiveness about it. I don't know. That is it is a silly concept, but it's kind of a fun one. Like there's a lot of listicles out there that are really goofy. This one honestly there's sort of a fun there's a fun spin on it. Even though there's more to being a Jedi master than their skills in battle.
The best barbecues in Star Wars ranked. Number 1, Darth Vader. Number 2, Anakin / Darth Vader. Number 3, Onin Brulars. Number 4, Qui-Gon Jinn.
Surprisingly, a lot of them.
No disintegrations.
No disintegration. Incredible. Matthew also asks bonus question or follow-up question. What will Matthew, be doing on March 16th at 4:15 and 6:15 p.m. Eastern? I can tell you the answer to that. At 4:15, let me make sure I get this right here. He'll be on the panel Star Wars The High Republic 101 at Toronto Comic-Con in Theater 4. That's on Saturday at what time was it? 4:15. And then at 6:15 again in Theater 4. This is why I had to get my phone out to make sure I can get the title of this right. Crowning the Queen of Pop, the Eras film, and the reign of Taylor Swift. That's right. That's a panel happening at Toronto Comic-Con.
Oh, yes.
So that's 6:15, Theater 4, room 202 CD. So yeah, lots of Star Wars Underworld content at Toronto Comic-Con, in addition to my 2 panels on Friday and Sunday. All right, so what else we got here? Oh, one from Kajira who says, dang it, we missed the chance of seeing Crossy Boy in Pabu clothing. And Hannah jumped into the chat here to say Crossy Boy, LOL, but also so true.
Still could happen.
It still could happen. Yeah. I don't
gotta go back.
I don't think we're done with Pabu.
No.
I don't think they designed a new costume for Omega just for this episode.
Exactly. It's a good point.
I think we're going to go back to Pabu, and I'm pretty sure there's some shots in the trailer of some bad stuff going down on Pabu.
No.
And they dropped Shep. They name dropped Shep in this episode, which I was glad. I want to see him back. I love that guy. Bring back the Pabu crew. They were a lot of fun.
Protect them at all costs.
Oh man, good stuff. So that's it for Ask the SWU. If you want to submit questions for a future week, Discord is the best place to do that between shows, and you can also super chat with us live if you want to get your question in as we are recording, or if you want to respond to something we've said during the live show. That's another way to do that. But I think with that, we can begin to wrap things up for this week.
Wait, the music is back. It's back. Oh my gosh. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you follow us on social media at the SWU for latest and greatest Star Wars news, memes, and quotes on a daily basis at the SWU. Dominic, thank you so much for hosting tonight.
It was my pleasure. As always, great fun breaking down this episode of The Bad Batch with you guys and with Josh. Lots of great insight, as always, into the episode that's shared by everyone on this show. And I'm so looking forward to next week with the another two-parter. 2 episodes that I'm sure will really get people talking. So I can't wait to talk about those, to see those and talk about those with you guys on the show next week. And again, I'll remind you, and as I will do all through next week's show as well, come to my 2 panels if you're going to be at Star Wars Celebration. No, if you're going to be at Toronto Comic Con in just over a week's time, make sure you come out to Intro to Star Wars Publishing on Friday, March 15th at 11 a.m. in Theater 3, aka Room 2AB. That will feature Claudia Gray, Star Wars author. And then on Sunday, the last panel of Toronto Comic Con, 3:15 p.m., Theater 4, Room 202 CD, celebrating Star Wars for some all-round good times chatting Star Wars. So hope to see everybody there. But for now, that's it for me. Can't wait to do all this again in 7 days' time.
Fantastic. You can follow Dominic on social media at DominicJ25. Ben, thank you so much for hosting as well.
Oh, it was an absolute pleasure, as always. And since I have nothing to promote tonight, I'll promote something for Hannah. She's not here to promote herself. She was not here because she betrayed us, and she went over to hang out with those bums over at the Holonet Marauders. So definitely go check that out. Go check out the Holonet Marauders. They're great podcast, and they took Hannah's from us this week. How dare you?
Yeah, and follow at the Raeside.
Of course. And you can follow Ben at Ben Hart with no E. You can follow me at Seek3PO. Also check out the Star Wars Spelt Out show, which is Josh's show. Make sure you check that out. Star Wars Spelt Out. And make sure to check out all the other shows on the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network. Like we mentioned, Hannah Show, the Raeside, Ion Cannon, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, Tractor Beam, and more. Some can be found on this channel, on YouTube. Others can be found on in their respective channels. So check out all those awesome things. Make sure you join us over at the SWU Network Discord. The link is in the show notes and description, so make sure you check that out. We've got game nights, and we have watch parties and fun discussion about Star Wars and many other things.
Stuff happening too. Just randomly, I'll just go on there. I'm like, this wasn't planned, and it's like there's just people congregating. This is how it's supposed to be.
Yes. There's a little bit of an Overwatch group that has formed. That is what has happened.
Perhaps an obsession, if you will. So it's good to see those.
Yes. So check that out over at the Star Wars Underworld Network Discord server. Please subscribe on the app you're listening to us on. Make sure you also subscribe on YouTube if you're watching that. Punch that subscribe button. Chewy, thanks to everybody who super chats with us, and thanks to our channel members for helping make this possible. We'll be back next week, but until then, for Dominic and Ben, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
It's all right.